First of all, when we do any kind of meditation practice, it can be tremendously anxiety producing for anybody. And it can happen suddenly for anybody unexpectedly also. And it can happen for a variety of reasons that are clear or not clear. And it can happen if we are meditating alone. It can happen if we're meditating in a group. It's just part of it, okay? And if we meditate long enough, we are going to have some experiences of anxiety. And part of that will be that we are experiencing anxiety that is pre-existing, that we're just becoming more aware of, or part of it may be that the practice itself is creating anxiety for different reasons. Now, what's important is because there are so many different factors with this, that we have a flexible approach to working with it. And the flexibility comes down to being easy on ourselves and being flexible with how we manage the anxiety based on our own interest level and capacity. And so one solution then, if anxiety is arising during meditation, and I say this in the broader context of all meditation, there are some unique kinds of anxiety that come when we listen to our heartbeat, but they are the same anxiety, same issues, physiologically, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, the same basic issues as if we're doing any kind of meditation in any lineage, anytime. Anxiety is there. And sometimes it gets triggered. Sometimes it's already there. Sometimes it's just a memory. Sometimes it's something we ate. Sometimes it's something we remembered or something we have to do, or there's so many causes. But the most important thing is that there is no one answer. There is no one method. There is no one strategy. But I'll share a few things. And these are things that we should learn how to self-manage and how to be comfortable with it. Because if we put it in the context of yin and yang, we don't want to force an overstimulated state to become worse through intensifying our concentration and tension in the body. But on the other hand, we don't want to necessarily run away from it either. So how do we find that balance of yin and yang when it comes to anxiety arising? Now, here is a fundamental principle about meditation and meditation experiences, okay? And that is, and this is one of the reasons why I opened up this subject about the differences between experiences, insights, and accomplishments. So for the most part, most meditation experiences mean relatively little. And that includes, wonderful, beatific, blissful visions of the deities pouring nectar into our crown chakra, or anxiety. For the most part, these things are regarded as simply phenomena by those who have had enough experience and training. And especially in the Vipassana tradition, it is taught very clearly that we cultivate equanimity. And in the process of cultivating equanimity, that means that we don't give anything any great importance that is arising. And therefore, if there is anxiety arising, we observe it with detachment. We observe it with equanimity. And we say, okay, anxiety is arising, and we use it as an opportunity to observe the nature of reality, which is that our mental and emotional states arise and dissolve all the time. And so therefore, we can use any emotion, blissful emotion, pleasant body states, any kind of comfort, any kind of discomfort, any kind of anxiety, anything. We can use anything to study the fact that it is simply part of a flow. And this is one of the fundamental insights that will come the more we listen to the heartbeat as a river, the more we listen to the heartbeat as a stream, and the more we connect it to the flow of the mind stream in other practices that we do, we will notice that the mind is moving, the heartbeat is moving, circulation is moving, and then we notice that anxiety arises, and then we notice that the heartbeat does something in response to that, and then we notice that the heartbeat just keeps going on, and then we notice that the anxiety subsides. Okay, or we are listening to the heartbeat and we're noticing that creativity is arising in the mind, and we are getting some exciting ideas about things we would like to do, and we notice that the heartbeat is responding, and then we notice that the stream of the pulsations just continues on, and then we notice that the creativity subsides. In other words, all mental states arise and dissolve, all emotional states arise and dissolve, and we can see that if we stay with it long enough. Now, that's where the question of our own tolerance comes in, because people have heard that basic teaching countless times, I'm sure, and it's easier said than done. And so therefore, sometimes we don't want to just sit there and try to develop equanimity. We're really anxious about something. And this is where we also need to listen to our own heart. And this is another aspect of this practice, is that if we are having anxiety, we should ask our heart, why? Why am I feeling anxious? Or if we already know why we're feeling anxious, then we should ask our heart, what should I do about it? Okay, so this is how we can kind of circle back and link all of these things together, because the heart will give us guidance when it comes to the troubling emotions. And sometimes the best thing for troubling emotions is to take action, not to meditate. Sometimes the best thing is to just get totally clear on exactly what we want to say to that person and how to say it to diffuse the situation that we're so anxious about. Or we need to focus on these conditions and so forth. Now, this is obviously a pretty large subject, and there are very specific kinds of anxiety. And so I'm going to address this particular anxiety, and this particular anxiety, the heart, how the heart supports my existence. Good. Well, if you are aware that the heart is supporting your existence, then that may cause anxiety. Why? Well, because our existence is only one heartbeat to the next. That could be anxiety producing, really understanding that. But on the other hand, it could be a source of absolute spiritual rapture, to get in touch with the fact that every moment of life is precious and arising only because that heart is pumping. And so therefore, how we respond to that insight can be very different. And so what I would say then is that the experience is anxiety, but the insight that you have stated here is the realization that existence depends on the heart. Okay. Now, What is the accomplishment? The accomplishment is to be able to experience that with the entire range of emotional reactions, the entire range of spiritual, psychological reactions, fully. Because there's nothing wrong with feeling anxiety about the fact that our existence depends on heartbeat. Just as there's nothing wrong with experiencing anxiety with impermanence anytime, anywhere, from anything. It's normal. That's why we have anxiety. It's built into our brain. We should have anxiety. But that's not the end of the story. And we shouldn't live in a state of anxiety about it. And so the accomplishment here spiritually is that we gradually become more comfortable with the fact that our existence is resting on some very thin threads. Actually, it's our interface of consciousness and matter is extremely fragile. Okay. And the more we understand that, then the more we can be at peace about our own mortality and impermanence, and the more we can really start to enjoy every moment. And I think that this is one of the common transformations that happens to people who have near-death experiences, is that something fundamentally changes in the appreciation of being alive, because there was a real direct experience with the possibility that it was going to end. Now, this is a kind of anxiety that happens if we listen to the heartbeat. And it is something that we need to be prepared to encounter. And we need to be prepared to walk away from it if we don't want to encounter it. And the simple answer to this, or another way to describe it, is we don't have to go very far in meditation practice to encounter the shadow. It's right there. It's always there. It's all the things that we don't want to pay attention to. That's what the shadow is. It's all the sides of us that we don't want to pay attention to. And suddenly we're paying attention to ourselves. And immediately that means that the shadow will be there. And part of the shadow is the archetype of death and the archetype of impermanence, the reality of impermanence. But we can say that this anxiety is forward-looking. This anxiety is based on realizing how fragile life is, that it's just one heartbeat at a time. And this is a profound insight, a profound experience. And then if you can become comfortable with that gradually, step by step, it will become a profound accomplishment. But there's also the backward-looking anxiety. And this came up during the course also. Some people said, why should I think about my past? It's so painful. Well, you don't have to. Just don't do that practice. Don't think about your past. But your past isn't gone. That's the thing. It's a shadow that is always there. And until you are comfortable looking at the shadow, then it's not going to dissolve. And the more that we look at it, the more we will understand it, and the more compassion we'll have for ourselves, and the more it'll just become part of our awareness that everything is arising and dissolving. So to just wrap this up, the only thing that I would repeat here is we should be easy on ourselves. And this is extremely important for people who have been in spiritual lineages that have been harmed by those lineages or those practices or those teachers who have told them to do things that they were not ready to do or psychologically prepared to do, and it has been damaging to the psyche. So in other words, there are many people that I have met over the years who have a really bad association with meditation because of a guru or because of a lineage and because of an instruction that was too heavy-handed, too dogmatic, too authoritarian, too abusive for the needs of that person at a sensitive time. And instead, that person just needed to stop that practice. They needed to not face something. They needed something else. They didn't need to go into it forcefully. Now, if that applies to any of you, then just keep in mind, listening to the heart practices are not dogmatic. They're based on cultivating your own relationship with your heart as the teacher. And the one thing that I can say is that your heart is not going to be abusive at all. Your heart is going to be really good to you, okay? And it will guide you in all the best, most appropriate, most timely ways as you listen to it more. All right. I know that this will be another subject in the future. And so somebody, okay, so let's see here. The same person. Awesome, thanks. We have been under high fire danger and just got through high winds to get to the rain, but we got through it. I practiced a heart meditation to try to deal with this situation. Okay, well, that adds a little flavor and color to your earlier comment, because now the question is, what if there are actually anxiety-producing conditions in our life and we sit down to meditate and we feel anxiety? Well, everything I told you is all true, but it's also something else to think about in terms of how we manage anxiety. And that is, well, we would like to do a practice that has a direct effect on calming the anxiety.